Let's talk about what products you should produce, sourcing tips, funding tips, marketing tips, as well as, just having the right mindset so that you can talk comfortably about your brand. I'm answering all of your juicy questions in this episode today. I'm going to talk about what products you should be producing, how you can guarantee your success, how to fund your brand, marketing strategies, sales strategies, mindset tips, and everything in between. So let's dive in. I've had so much fun recording all of these episodes over the past month, and thank you so much for all your kind words. I know all of you have been really enjoying them, and also you've been sending a lot of questions in, which is so exciting. So I have them all on my phone today, and I'm going to be answering them. So there's 15 questions I'm going to go through, and I'm excited to dive in. So without any further ado, let's talk about the first question, which is, should I still start a fashion brand? I feel like there's already so many brands out there, and I don't know how to differentiate myself. So that's the first question, and I want to talk about this. So if you are just starting another brand that's just going to make t-shirts or sweaters or jeans or dresses, I would say maybe rethink it, because we have enough clothing as is. However, if you are trying to solve a gap in the market and you are being really intentional about creating a product that is needed, that is going to solve a pain point and a problem, then absolutely, I think there's still room for you. And I feel like if you were in the first situation where you just kind of want to start a fashion brand, then I would encourage you to think deeper around what problem, what pain point can you solve? Who can you help and who can you support with your brand? That's so important. We need more intentional and genuinely conscious brands out there right nowadays. We don't just need another fashion brand. So I would say there's still room for you to succeed, but you need to be really smart about the products you launch. So next question, how do I make my brand as sustainable as possible? So this is something that kind of goes into the first question I just answered, which is making sure that your products actually solve a problem and a pain point and it is needed, because long gone are the days of just making product for the sake of making product. We actually need to create things that people will actually use and want and find value, because otherwise, why are you doing this, right? Why are you wasting money? Why are you wasting resources to create this thing if no one wants it? So that's first and foremost, create a product that actually solves a pain point and a need, and that will just make it as sustainable as possible. And then next, I've talked about this on the podcast before, but just get rid of this notion of being perfectly sustainable, because that just does not exist. If you truly wanted to be sustainable, you would not start a fashion brand. You would probably also not live your life, because it's not sustainable to go out and drive your car or fly halfway across the world or commute to work. That's just not sustainable, but that's also not realistic. So the name of the game actually isn't to be as sustainable as possible. The name of the game is actually balance, and figuring out how you can balance running your business, being as profitable as possible while still leaving enough for future generations. And so I think first and foremost, accepting that you're going to be imperfectly sustainable, and that is okay. That's the first thing I would challenge you to do. And then next, after that, understand that as a new startup brand, you are not going to be able to tackle the entire fashion industry's issues on your own. And even if you were to try, I think the dauntingness of that, if that's the word, I don't know, I made it up. We'll make it a word. The dauntingness of that and just how overwhelming it would be would probably paralyze you, and you probably wouldn't do much after that. So that's not what we want. We want to make sure that you do all the things you want with your brand and you make it go as far as possible. So it is important that you accept you're going to be imperfectly sustainable and you pick and choose your battles. I've talked about this before, but pick and choose your sustainability priorities. Is it really important to you to eliminate plastic from your brand? Is it really important for you to try to reduce carbon emissions? Are you really gung-ho about only using natural materials? What is it that is so important to you? But just prioritize that, because at the end of the day, you can only prioritize 1 to 2 things, and then that way you can do it really well, and as you go and scale, you can do more things. So I would say how you can be as sustainable as possible, first and foremost, is having a product that people actually need and it solves a problem and a pain point. Next, understanding that you're going to be imperfectly sustainable and that's okay. And thirdly, picking and choosing your battles, having priorities so that you can actually do those things really well. And then as you get more budget, you can grow and scale. So that is what I would recommend from a sustainability perspective. Next, someone asked, how do I know what products I should produce? So this is something I talk about all the time. And so just as a refresher, you need to create products that actually will be used. Because if you created a product out of the most sustainable materials, out of the, at the best factory in the world, and no one uses it, then you've just created sustainable junk. So we need to make sure there's a need and a want. And how you figure out what products you should produce is actually by asking your ideal customer. So don't ask me this, ask them that. So figure out the person that you want to target and help. Do a lot of market research through surveys and interviews to figure out what they're struggling with when it comes to their life in general, but also, of course, as it pertains to their wardrobes, right? Like I have so many examples of clients that had faced an issue with themselves. Like I talked a couple of weeks ago about my client that started a sustainable athletic brand because she has a bigger bust and she felt like she could never find a supportive sports bra that allowed her to actually do physical activity without worrying things are flying all over the place, and also not having like a stylish bra that could also be transitioned after workouts to like brunch and to all these other things. So she found a pain point and she made it her mission to solve it. And that's how she was successful, because she found like there was a gap in the market. Similarly for you, in order to figure out what products should be produced, you need to do a lot of research. You need to figure out where the gaps are and how you can solve a problem with your product. Like I want to do a sweater and I'm going to make it cute. Like that's not the thought process I want you to be in. I want you to be in this thought process where it is so damn intentional that what you're doing is actually going to add value to someone's life and they're going to wear it all the time. So that's just what I think about products. Okay, so the next question was around do you actually recommend launching with 1 to 2 products? I'm worried about people not vibing with the one product / leaving money on the table. Okay, so this is also one of my hot takes, but I always tell people to launch with just 1 or 2 products. And the reason behind that is you as a startup brand have limited time, limited resources, limited energy, and limited budget. And as a result of that, I don't want you to spread it thin across a 5 or a 10 or 15 piece collection, because the goal with your first collection is that you knock it out of the park. People are floored by the quality. They love it. And you get to build a reputation and you get to build trust with your brand so that people know that your pieces are high quality. And when you do a next drop, they're like, yes, take my credit card. I trust you. I know you've got this. So that's the goal. And that's a very high standard. That's a high bar. And it's hard to reach that if you are spread thin across 5, 10, 15, 20 pieces. And even just from a cost perspective, with all of our clients, we always get them to do a full size run too with their samples. You need to make every single size, every single colorway, make sure it's perfect. And even that can cost thousands of dollars depending on how many colors, patterns, and sizes you have. And so if you multiply that by 5, by 10, by 15, you may not have budget to do that. And then you might start to cut corners and you may realize that you don't want to do a full size run because you can't afford it. And that's when things start to slip through the cracks. I really recommend doing only 1 to 2 products. And I know this person mentioned, what if people don't vibe with the one product, and also leaving money on the table? So if you validate your product and you know that it is going to solve a pain point and a problem, you don't need to worry about the fact that people aren't vibing with it. It'll happen because if you go into this so intentionally and you go into this with the mind frame of there's this problem that my ideal customer has, they have not been able to solve it, they have not been able to find a problem to solve it, and I'm going to create it. People are going to get it and people are going to want to buy it regardless if you just have that one product. But the key is making sure that it's validated and actually solves a problem. So I don't think you need to worry about that, and instead think of it more as worrying about nailing that one product instead, and making sure it really solves that pain point. And in regards to leaving money on the table, yeah, you leave money on the table every single day. That's the opportunity cost of things. But what I'm saying in this instance is that you launch with 1 to 2 products, you make sure they're really good, they're validated, your ideal customer is so excited about it, and then if you have more ideas, you can launch it later on. Let's say you launch with a 10-piece collection this first go around, you might feel because you have more products and more options, you're going to make more money. But what happens when someone buys one piece from your collection? It's not high quality, falls apart, they're not happy with it. They're probably going to ask for a refund. B, never going to buy from you again, and C, maybe even badmouth you to people and tell them not to buy from you, right? So that is so much more damaging versus you like knocking out of the park with this one product and then expanding and having bigger collections moving forward. So I hope that really kind of solidifies why I recommend 1 to 2 products. And again, it's not forever. It's just for this first launch to ensure that you will have future launches. Okay, next question. How do I figure out my ideal customer? How specific and niche down does it need to be? Yeah, this is a really good question because I find that sometimes people can be on polarizing ends. There's some people that will make their ideal customer super generic and just be like, I'm targeting women aged 20 to 50, which is huge. And then some people are like, I'm targeting 25-year-olds that are switching careers and live in Atlanta, as an example, right? Which is so specific. So you need to be kind of in the middle. We need to be balanced here. I would say you'll know you've got it when you feel like there's a good amount of people that fall into this demographic, but it is specific enough that you can feel like your product, your messaging, and everything is tailored to them. So as an example, even for me, right? Like I talk to sustainable fashion entrepreneurs, I talk to sustainable fashion brand owners. And so it is quite specific, but there is enough of you out there that like I can still make sure I have an impact and I'm able to make a living. At the same time though, all my stuff is geared towards sustainable fashion so that you feel like everything I'm saying is directed towards you. Like that's kind of that sweet spot in the middle. Another example, one of my clients, she started a sustainable wedding dress company, right? So it is narrowed down for sure. Worldwide, there's enough brides out there. So it's really around making sure that you have a big enough addressable market at the end of the day. It can't be like all the way over here where there's only like 5 people that fall into the category, but you also can't be all the way over here where there's like, you can talk to 50 million people, right? So you need to be in the middle, and the sweet spot needs to be you feel like you can be targeted with your messaging and with your product, but you also know that there's enough people. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so this person asks, how much is starting a brand going to cost me? So this is something that I feel like people shy away from. People don't like to talk about numbers, and I get it because it is hard to estimate because of just like the different products, right? Like if you're launching with one product, it's obviously going to be cheaper than someone that's launching with 10 products, let's say. And also the specific type of product you launch also has a big varying factor in your costs, because if something is more complex to make, it'll take more time to design it, it'll take more materials probably, and also take more longer to produce it. However, I got really fed up with the lack of transparency when it comes to costs in the industry, because I firmly believe that slow fashion founders that want to start a brand need to go into this with their eyes wide open, knowing how much it's going to cost. So I put together an absolutely free, no BS, no fluff training, which is called the How to Fund Your Fashion Line training. You can access it at recloseted.com/budget. The link will be in the show notes, but the training is like, I think 25 minutes. So it's super short, no fluff, no BS. I walk you through exactly what you should spend your money on, what you shouldn't. I also give you a spreadsheet where I walk you through all the line items, everything it takes to start a brand, and then how much it's going to cost so that you will know what to expect and what to budget for, but also so that you know what the estimates are so that you don't get ripped off. And last but not least, I also talk about how you're going to get the funding to fund your brand. So you can access that at recloseted.com/budget. I think it's a really good training, not to toot my own horn. So I would just watch that training and that will answer the question for you. And then the next question as well is people were asking, how do I get the funding I need for my brand? So yeah, just same answer as the last question. Check out the training because I think it'll really help you. I talk about how much it costs and then how you're going to get that funding. So just set aside 25 minutes. You can access it again at recloseted.com/budget. Okay, so someone asked tips for sourcing low MOQ manufacturers and materials. Yes, this is also something that comes up a lot because a lot of people want to figure out what the best materials are, where the best manufacturers are, how do I know that they're sustainable and ethical and all that stuff. And also a lot of brands don't want to sign up for huge minimum order quantities, and so sourcing can be tough. And that's why I put together a free masterclass talking about sourcing, and it's called How to Launch a Profitable Sustainable Fashion Brand. And I run this masterclass every few weeks or so make sure you check out recloseted.com/masterclass if you haven't signed up and gone through it already. I talk about that in depth there and I give you some resources. So I will save that for the masterclass because I go way more in depth there and I think that would be really helpful to you. So you can sign up for my next session at recloseted.com/masterclass. The next question I got is, should I be on TikTok or Instagram? So for this question, I want to take a step back because the answer is you need to be on the platform that your ideal customer is on. If you're going to spend the effort to put out content, you want to make sure your ideal customer is seeing it. So it's really around which platform you feel like your ideal customer is on the most. And then honestly, if you decide to be on Instagram and you're making reels anyways, then you can always repurpose them to TikTok. I would say also if you're going to be on TikTok, you could also repurpose it to Instagram as well. So I will allow it, but first and foremost, you do need to figure out where your ideal customer is on. And I always talk about being on one social media platform and pairing that with email marketing because email marketing is like customer real estate data that you own. But then with the one social media platform, the reason why I recommend that is so that you can actually focus on it and grow it, get enough of a community of your ideal customers in there so that you can make sales and then be able to grow and scale your brand and have other people helping you. And so, yeah, that's why I recommend it. But at the end of the day, you need to figure out where your ideal customer is on. And then if you choose Instagram, or you choose TikTok, and if you want to repurpose short form videos, that's okay. I will allow it. Okay, speaking of social media, so this person says, I feel really weird talking about my brand and I feel like I just can't post on social media. There's like a bit of that disconnect. So I want to talk about this because a lot of my clients actually face this. I would say almost like 50%. A lot of people feel weird talking about their brand. They're shy about it. And I remember even when I first started Recloseted, I was a bit shy as well. And I think it's just like a mindset thing. You might feel like a lot of imposter syndrome. I think I would encourage you to journal about what's coming up for you. Like, why do you really feel like you can't post? Is it because you feel like Sally from work is going to judge you? Or is it like, I don't know, Sally from your high school that used to tease you? Like, is she going to judge you? It's usually like a couple of people's opinions that for some reason carry so much weight. And it's like, are you going to not post because of Sally? You know, it doesn't make sense. So I would just journal about it, see what comes up for you. Is it imposter syndrome? Is it like negative self-talk? Like, what is the mindset stuff going on? Figure that out and then you can address it. And just know that, yes, it is scary to post, but once you post and people know about it, it's like no big deal. And honestly, people are way more obsessed with themselves than they are with you. So you might have like spotlight effect where you feel like everyone's watching you and everyone's keeping tabs on you and everyone's talking about you. But the reality is everyone's living their own life and they're kind of preoccupied with themselves. So I think if you post, people will read it. They'll be like, that's awesome. And then go on about their life. It's really not that deep. I think you just need to like deal with any of the mindset stuff that's coming up, which I know is harder said than done. So again, recommend you journal, see what comes up, and then you can work on it. The next question is around email marketing. So this person is saying, I know you always talk about owning customer real estate. Is email marketing still something you think we should do in 2024? How do you get signups and like what kind of things should I send in my email? Yeah, so email marketing is still important this year more than ever, especially because there's talks of like US banning TikTok and all this stuff. So you want to make sure that you have customer real estate that you own, and that is important. And so in terms of signups, you need something that's called like an opt-in or a lead magnet because people usually don't freely give out their emails anymore. So on your website, you need to have some sort of email collection area. So it could be like a pop-up, it could be at the bottom of your page, whatever, but you need to have some sort of incentive for someone to give you their email, which is like what an opt-in or a lead magnet is. You're going to like magnetize your lead essentially. And a lot of e-com clothing brands will do a discount code or like free shipping on first order, but I think that unnecessarily erodes your premium brand equity. You don't need to discount when you don't have to, and instead I get a lot of my clients to provide some sort of like value to their customer instead. So whether it's like an ebook on like a problem they're doing or it's something related to another problem they have, like as an example, one of my clients that targeted new moms, she had a whole breastfeeding guide PDF that people were really excited about. So it's just around figuring out what would resonate with your ideal customer and then just sending value, right? Like every single social media platform, or like if we zoom out, your marketing strategy in general should be just to give value and give as much as possible so that you can warm up your audience. Okay, thoughts on ads and influencer marketing. Is it still worth it? Yeah, I mean, when it comes to a new brand awareness and getting your brand out there, like so important. And that's where ads and influencer marketing can come into play. However, I think long gone are the days where D2C brands are just built on like Facebook ads. Ads are so expensive now. And also with the Apple privacy settings and all that stuff, ads just don't work the same. So you still need to build a brand and build a community from the ground up using organic marketing to prove that you can build a brand and prove that this has traction and this works. So organic is still king. However, you can amplify it here and there with ads and with influencer marketing. But the key is being so strategic with your ads, making sure that you know that the budget that is going in there is going to work. It works in your overall like marketing strategy and funnel. And then also when it comes to influencer marketing, I think a lot of people are kind of sick of it. I don't know if it's me personally, but it's just become so expected. So instead of just trying to work with like the biggest influencers out there and shelling out your entire budget for it, I think it's more so partnering with people that are like micro influencers, a little bit smaller, that actually have your ideal customer in their community. And I also think with TikTok, it kind of like democratized influencers in the way where like anyone can kind of be an influencer now too. So I would encourage you to think about your customers as influencers too, because nowadays there are so many influencers and people are pushing product all the time. And so for me personally, I take a lot of product recommendations from my friends, from my family. And so don't underestimate the power of your customers as well. Like that's something I really think we need to go back to, like remembering that if you're going to do an influencer dinner, like maybe instead you do a top 10 customers dinner and you reward your top loyal customers, right? Like just something to think about. Long story short, I still think influencer marketing and ads can play into your marketing strategy, but it's not the end all be all like it was before. Like you still need to build your community organically and make sure that you understand how you communicate to your customer, understand what they want, how you can serve them, and do that first. And then everything else is just icing on the cake. Okay, and then the next question is, what's a realistic first collection launch goal? Yeah, this is a good question. So I talked about launch goals last episode and I kind of threw out like 10K because again, like I didn't want to be doing gnarly mental math. So I just threw out 10K, and some people were like, oh my God, that would be amazing. And then other people were like, oh, that's kind of low. I want to make more. And then other people was like, wow, that's a lot of money. And I'm like, that terrifies me. So I think it's whatever makes you comfortable. Obviously you don't want to set it to be, I don't know, like a $500 launch goal and just sell yourself short. You do want something that's motivational and pushes you. So just think about whatever figure would make you happy, right? And also, I think if you're not working with me or someone else and you're DIYing this, like I would be kind of realistic with how long this is going to take you and how much you can make just by DIYing it. If we are working together, like we're going to definitely try to push you as much as possible and get you up there. But at the end of the day, this is a personal decision to you. Like, what do you think you can accomplish? And then I would like ×2, because I think a lot of us underestimate ourselves. And then the other thing too is just being realistic around what you can accomplish depending on like, you know, the courses, the mentors and stuff you have invested in. So yeah, I would pick something that motivates you, that pushes you, but is also realistic given kind of your situation. Okay, and then the 14th question, so the second last question, is what happens after your first collection launch? Yes, so after your first collection launch, the world is your oyster. You can do whatever you want. You can launch the same collection again, because I always get my clients to do a 2-week launch window, and then it's like the pre-sales are closed, so then you can launch it again if you want. Or if you're sick of it, you're over it, you can launch another collection as well and then keep your existing pieces in there too. So you can have like a bigger second collection launch. It's really up to you. The world is your oyster, but I would recommend you go back to your ideal customers and even ask them what they want. Were there some people that really wanted things in your first collection, but they couldn't get it? So then if that's the case, relaunch it. Super easy for you. You just rinse and repeat. Or are people asking for like a complimentary product to the first product you launch, right? Like really ask your ideal customer and understand that there's many different ways to go about things. Last but not least, what are some resources you recommend for first-time founders? Yeah, so as a first-time founder, you really need to continuously work on your learning and your development because you don't want to be the bottleneck of your business. I talk about that all the time. So the first thing I would recommend is subscribing to this podcast if you haven't already. I give out a lot of resources that, quite frankly, I could charge for, but I give it out for free because I want everyone to be as successful as possible. I want all of us to work towards transforming the harmful fashion industry together. Subscribe to this podcast, and then also I do a lot of YouTube videos as well. You can go to YouTube, search up Recloseted, you'll be able to find us. I would say like I give a lot of free strategies and advice through our channel, so definitely recommend these resources. If you haven't already, I would check out my How to Fund Your Fashion Line training, where I talk about exactly how much it costs to start a fashion brand and how to get that funding, like I talked about earlier in the episode. So definitely recommend that resource. The link again is recloseted.com/budget. I would also recommend my How to Launch a Profitable Sustainable Fashion Brand Masterclass. If you haven't gone through it, I talk about how to create products that sell out, how to source sustainable materials and ethical manufacturers with low MOQs, and last but not least, the proven process to build a community from scratch that is dying to buy from you. So you can sign up for the masterclass at recloseted.com/masterclass. And then I would say some books that are really good is I talked a couple episodes about The Mountain Is You. Such a good book. Anything Brianna White's, I eat it all up. So good. And then Failosophy is a really good one as well. I've been telling folks about that. I've been telling my clients about it, just like around failure and what you can learn from it. And I'm trying to think what other resources. Just really, I would say, acknowledge where your development gaps might be and then try to search for things in terms of like books, podcasts to really round that out. But I will say, not to toot my own horn, but I try to make this podcast as well-rounded as possible. I give you business strategy. I take you behind the scenes around what I'm doing. We talk mindset. We bring other people on as well. So I will say like this podcast will be a really good resource to you if you're a first-time founder. But like, I also would love to hear your feedback. If there's stuff that you want me to talk about, if there's more stuff you want me to cover, all ears. I want this to be as helpful as possible to you. So I hope that this was helpful. It was so fun answering 15 questions. I feel like that flew by. And if you haven't already heard, we launched a new Build Your Brand Blueprint, which is the A to Z roadmap of how you can go from idea to successful, profitable fashion brand. I've laid it all out, everything you need to do, all the steps, the order of the steps, when you need to do it by. You can just check it off. You just need to execute. I also have a bunch of resources in there. So like I have like my marketing resources, I have my product resources, my sourcing resources. So check it out. This is the last time to get the discount. So we launched it this month and you can snag it at recloseted.com/blueprint. And if you use code launch, you'll get $20 off. But this is like the month where we were talking all about launching, starting a brand to celebrate. And this is the last episode. This is the last week. You can get that $20 off. Make sure you grab the blueprint if you haven't already. It's such a steal for the price. And again, I just wanted to make sure that people were supported. So yeah, I hope this was helpful for you. I'm really excited to continue to support all of you. And as always, if you have any topics you want me to talk about on the podcast, comment them down below.